Hello, hello, hello. Welcome in. Happy Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us right here. We are back. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam, Ronis, Fantasy Life on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. We had a huge day yesterday, Adam, because we have great upgraded tools on fantasylife.com. We had a ton of guests, and now it's just you and me back together again. Best friends, right? Best BFFs.
Yeah, definitely. Let's get it done. Still adjusting to this new time. It's very early for me.
Is it early? Yeah. It's a little bit earlier, but you're fine. You're going to bed at like 2 a.m. It's good.
Yeah, basically. Hopefully
That's
a little bit
horrible.
earlier.
We haven't fixed that yet?
No. I
Yeah,
don't
the
think
whole
it's ever
summer.
going to be fixed.
That's fine. That's fine. I also, by the way, let me just let the people know you can play your music. People are like, Kendall, you should let Adam play his music. I'm like, hang on a second. I don't
No.
have the controls back here. Can
Yeah,
you
You're
let the people know?
You're very
Stop.
strict. You're the one who
Stop.
requests everything. I have
No,
no
I
say.
don't. You just don't want to let the people know that you like Sabrina Carpenter
I do
and
not.
Taylor Swift.
I didn't
can't
even
remember.
know
Chapel
who
Roan.
Sabrina Carpenter was before you.
Whatever. But now we're going to her concert?
Yeah, I'm waiting for you to get
Oh,
the
okay.
tickets.
Then never mind. We're not. Then never mind. We're not going. So let me just clear the air there that Adam can play whatever music he likes. It is not my call.
It's
So
not true. How much hip hop do you hear during this show?
okay,
None.
okay. You want to do it today? You can
Yeah.
have requests? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We'll do it today. What
Okay,
else are we
cool.
doing today?
We'll see.
Appreciate everyone hanging out with us here, though. At Valenzuela17, at Adam Ronis over there on X, on Twitter is where you can give us a follow. And as always, like I said, fantasylife.com, we've got upgraded tools and everything over there is amazing. We just did that yesterday. So if you haven't been to the website yet, make sure you head over there. And if you want any Fantasy Life Plus subscription, because we love you guys so much, you guys are the best listeners, SXM20 gets you 20% off any Fantasy Life Plus subscription. So make sure you head over there. Adam, today, since we haven't been on weekdays for a while, I wanted to do a rewind, a little recap. I know it's been a while since free agency, since the NFL draft, but we haven't gotten to talk about it in depth for, multiple days in a row. So I wanted to start with a little rewind and see what our favorite moves were or what we thought of some of the, off-season moves and some of the free agency moves, starting with, you want to start with Stefon Diggs? How did you like that? Stefon Diggs goes to the New England Patriots, 3-year deal, $69 million contract, $26 million guaranteed. Let me just say this. It's going to be tough to convince a lot of people and say, hey, you should draft Stefon Diggs because he's not only another year older, but he's coming off that ACL injury that happened in week 8 that unfortunately ended his season. But let me say, Adam, going back and watching some of that, he was on a good pace at least. He looked like he was building chemistry with CJ Stroud. I was actually surprised that they didn't keep him there. But I kind of liked this move more so for Drake May than anyone else to get another weapon in that offense.
Yeah, they had to get more weapons for Drake May because I thought he played pretty well last year, considering the
Agreed.
circumstances around him with the offensive line, the lack of weapons. If you look at his numbers, they don't look impressive. But he did run a little bit too, and I did see something recently too that they didn't have a lot of designed runs for him, and they plan to change that this year. They were trying to preserve him down the stretch to keep him healthy. But yeah, I mean, Diggs. Now let's see. Diggs has made more headlines off the field this offseason.
Yeah.
So
just keep going. Just bypass that.
But when he did show up to the mini camp, he looked pretty good. I mean, again, it's just running around and it's not contact or anything, but the fact that he was out there was a good sign. And just his presence, his ability to run routes should definitely help Drake May. So I think it, helps the New England offense. I don't see huge numbers from him. I mean, we saw it last year too. There were not a lot of big plays. There was a lot of volume. So he is going to be dependent on that volume to come through in PPR formats.
I mean, when he was in Buffalo, right, he had 4 consecutive top 10 PPR scoring seasons during that time, and then was the wide receiver 17 in PPR points per game during those first 8 weeks last season. So we kind of know what we get with Stefon Diggs, but the other part of it is that he's been a pretty consistent just fantasy player for us. So when I look at the ADP, I almost think to myself, like, this is pretty baked in. Not only is his injury pretty baked into his price right now, but also his age. Wide receiver 45. I'm almost finding myself saying, okay, like let me get Stefon Diggs here because just because of how he's always been able to kind of at least beat his ADP by a little bit. So wide receiver 45 to me has everything baked into it where I'm not actually afraid to draft him in that range. Are you?
I haven't yet. I mean, I think that's the appropriate range. Like you
Yeah.
said, everything is kind of baked in. It's not like we're saying, "Oh my goodness, it's a extreme value," because there are question marks with his age and coming off the injury. Again, he was good last year with the Texans as far as just getting the consistent targets. So, I mean, I think at that range though, when you're drafting a receiver, you're looking for more, you're swinging for the fences, right? I
Yeah.
don't know if you want safety at that point. And I think people are looking at it and go, well, what is the ceiling for Diggs if he does come through? Is it worth it to take in that range when you have some other receivers that can possibly, hit a big home run? So I think that's why he's in that range. He's that. I guess if you do take shots early on though with some questionable receivers and you're looking for some, I don't know, can we call him safe though at this point?
I mean, he hasn't finished worse than wide receiver 25 in
Yeah,
PPR points per game in his
but it's also
career.
his third team in three
No, you're
years,
right.
and he's
I
31 coming off an injury and likes to party on boats with
stop.
substances.
Stop. Don't bring up the boats. Don't bring up the offseason.
And
But that's what I'm saying. But
what
that's
if
what I'm
Cardi B
saying. Like
broke
he's
his
been
heart? She just
stop.
didn't she
Well,
just
then it's
wipe away
revenge
all
season.
photos?
It's revenge
Oh,
season, right? Like then he
yeah, I
comes
don't
out and
think
we're
that
like
affects Diggs
huge
anyway.
season.
I
That's what
think
I'm saying though. That's the other part of me though, where I say, all right, well he really hasn't finished worse than wide receiver 25. Even if he finishes as wide receiver, let's say 30, I mean he's still beating that ADP by a lot. And so I understand taking a risk and taking shots on receivers at that range because to me, when I look at the guys going around him, it's Khalil Shakir, who I will draft ahead of Stefon Diggs, right? Jaden Reed, Matthew Golden. Those are two that I'm fine with. But then after him, it's like Josh Downs, Darnell Mooney, Brandon Ayuk, Michael Pittman Jr. So that's why I've been finding myself more times than not saying, like, okay, at this point, I'd rather take Diggs. Again, at that point in the draft, though, sometimes you just want to, for as many drafts as we do and how much volume we have going into the season, sometimes I'll just sprinkle around, an Ayuk, an Emeka Egbuka, a Darnell Mooney, just to make sure that I've got exposure to those guys. But I don't know, Brandon Ayuk at wide receiver 45. And if we do believe that Drake May's taking the next step forward and he's just going to be peppered with targets because that depth chart isn't that good, I could see him very much outperforming that ADP.
yeah, he definitely can. There's no question about it because he's got to lead this team in targets
Yes, right?
for them
That's a
to be
bad depth chart.
successful. Yeah, you don't go out and spend that money and bring in a veteran like that for Drake May to not have him lead the team in targets.
Agreed. But he's the only recently, at least I should say, he's really the only wide receiver on that team that I am drafting so far. It's only July, so I can say that maybe that changes here in a little bit, but I'm surprised they didn't do a little bit more with him. But Stefon Diggs right now, these are our projections at fantasylife.com. They're all live, so you can go check him out. He's projected for 740 receiving yards and 94 targets. Now, Kyle Williams is actually, I should say, I've taken a little bit of him, but
Yeah,
he's
I was going to
projected
ask you
for
about that because that would be the
500.
other guy.
Yeah, he's the other one. And then I think it would go Demario
Or
Douglas
Douglas.
and then Kayshawn Booty. But Kyle Williams is actually projected for 560 receiving yards, 558, and then 71 targets. So he's the next guy up.
Yeah, and I don't know. Those numbers could be better. Again, if you
I
expect
know.
Drake May to take a step up,
I do.
I do
I
too.
love draft. I think I'm the highest fantasy ranker with Drake May this year, which
Uh,
could go pretty good at the end of the season, or we won't talk about it and
no,
we'll say never
I
mind.
think it's going to go pretty good.
I think it's gonna be okay. All right, the other one I wanted to make sure we talked about here in this first segment, and again, we're just recapping. We haven't talked to you guys in a while. We've been on Sundays, but haven't been able to consistently go day in and day out. So I wanted to ask you about Devonte Adams' move to the Rams because I know last season I held my hands up and I said, hey, I'm out on Devonte Adams. I think I really did end up with 0% Devonte Adams last season. And then Adam, I got a little bit nervous because then he went to the Jets and things turned on for him. I mean, he still remained very dominant. He finished as the wide receiver, I want to say 11, and then he averaged 10 targets per game as well. So we know the connection that he always has with Aaron Rodgers. He peppered him with targets. So this was probably one of my favorite free agency moves of just guys that we see. We just talked about Stefon Diggs. This was probably my favorite move for Devonte Adams to go to the Rams. Cooper Kupp is no longer there, so obviously he fills that role. But what are your expectations for him this season? Do you like it as much as me?
Yeah, and usually it's weird because most times you're like a 32-year-old receiver changing teams again. This cannot be good. But Devonte Adams is in a different situation. I don't think the age is a big factor for him, as we saw down the stretch. He's really cerebral on the field, runs good
Yeah.
routes, and you're going to a team where you know where the football is going. They don't spread it around there. It's going to be Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, Kyron Williams. And we love that for fantasy. So the other thing too, he could be a big red zone factor. As good as Puka Nacua is, he hasn't scored a lot of touchdowns. That's the one thing when you look at some of those receivers up top. And we know when Puka's been on the field, he's been great, but he hasn't scored a lot of touchdowns.
Yeah.
He only has 9 touchdowns in 28 games. Doesn't mean he can't do it, but bringing in Adams should help in the red zone as well. So, yeah, you have to be considering the age and everything with Adams. And I was with you. I did not take Devontae Adams at all last year. I just didn't like this situation in Vegas. And we looked pretty smart for most of the
Yeah,
year.
for a little while.
Even when he first came to the Jets, it did not go that well early on. His first few games, you were like, oh, okay, is this connection back with Aaron Rodgers? Did they have too much time off? And then down the stretch, he just went off. And if you were able to hold on to him and get through the regular season and get into the fantasy playoffs, he was just a beast down the stretch. So he definitely showed that he's not done. He still has a lot left. And yeah, he should be pretty good for fantasy. I mean, he's going in that wide receiver 2 range, low wide
Yeah.
receiver 2, which I
And I
think is
think
fair.
And I think that's what he could produce, right? Low end wide receiver 2 numbers, maybe some big spike weeks, and then he's going as again. We're using underdog ADP because that's where we know a lot of people are drafting right now. So the wide receivers get pushed up the board a lot, but he's wide receiver 17. And I still think that that's pretty. If you don't want to draft Garrett Wilson's going ahead of him. Same with Marvin Harrison Jr. I feel like those could be 2 guys where people just say, I don't want any part of either of those, either offenses or players. And so you just continue to push Devonte Adams up. But I agree with you too that I think Devonte Adams fit in the Sean McVay offense. I think it's going to be seamless. I think that it's a really good match for Matthew Stafford. And the other part of this with the Cooper Kupp conversation is that's why I'm nervous as a Seahawks fan. We can talk about Cooper Kupp as a fantasy player, but from what they saw, they did not try to keep Cooper Kupp. They knew, probably, Adam, when I saw that, they kind of knew that the cliff was coming or inevitable, or maybe he's already falling off it. So that made me a little bit nervous as a Seahawks fan, that they were totally fine with Cooper Kupp, who's done a lot for that team, to just say, hey, it's not going to work out with us this season. But Devonte Adams then coming in and filling that spot. Cooper Kupp averaged 1.87 yards per route run against man coverage last season. Devonte Adams, when we talk about a difference, 2.98. So he's just better at this point. And like you said, age is not a concern for me because we saw just how good he was last season with Aaron Rodgers. Now you get an offense and just a team overall, Adam, that's going. I mean, they're Super Bowl contenders in the year 2025. So it makes me excited. And I'm back on Devonte Adams. I'm ready to draft him. Even with that price tag, wide receiver 17, I feel like I would draft him earlier than that just to reach for him.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people feel the same way. I think he is going to be highly coveted. And when you look at the Rams offense and just the way that they distribute the ball to their key guys, it's real important. And
Yeah.
you mentioned the Rams. They actually gave Philadelphia the toughest game in their
They
postseason
did.
run last
That
year.
snow game, that was a good game.
Yeah, and who knows if there's maybe better weather, maybe they have a chance to win that game.
Don't tell Eagles. Don't do this early. Don't tell Eagles
I'm not.
fans that. Come
Look,
on.
I'm not going to take anything away from Philadelphia. They deserved it. I am a Cowboys fan, and I don't
I
like
know.
Philadelphia, but you have to give them credit. They were great.
I think I read that they still haven't got their Super Bowl rings. Yeah, that's a random fun fact for you. I don't know what
Okay.
you want to do with that information.
Find
I don't
out
know
where
what you
those
want to do
rings
with
are
that,
and
but
destroy them.
stop. What is stop? Well, we can get. I purposely didn't put the Cowboys in this rundown today, just to we have to go through time. I almost asked about Jaden Blue, but it's okay. We don't have to. Last one here because again we're going to continue rewinding through the offseason and what's been happening just so we can all get back up to speed. But since we were already talking about the Rams, Cooper Kupp to the Seahawks, I've got 0% of Cooper Kupp so far. I haven't done enough drafts as I would like, but I mean, Adam, what do you look at with Cooper Kupp? 32 years old, and it was down the stretch. This was one of the more like when we talk about Cooper Kupp overall, he's been a great player, but down the stretch in 2024, 4 receptions, 53 yards in the last 3 games. Like it wasn't good. And again, to me, when I look at the Rams and they said, "Hey, you know what? We're not bringing Cooper Kupp back. We kind of want to go a different direction." They go out and get Devonte Adams. That's a kind of a signal for me of like, okay, what do they see? Because they've been pretty good about that.
Yeah, it's definitely not a good sign because they know him best. And there were even rumors last year during the season.
Yeah.
Remember, the Rams got off to a bad start, and right before that trade deadline, and I think that was a game. It was a Thursday night game. Puka came back, looked good, and then they went on that run. But the problem for Kupp was he just could not get open. That was the biggest issue. So you could say on one hand, well, he wasn't healthy. Now he's had an off season to get healthier. I am surprised how low he's going, but I understand it because there's not a point where I go, yeah, I want to take Cooper Kupp. But at that ADP, I'm probably not going to do it. Like I said, I just feel like I'd rather take a chance on some younger wide receivers that
Yeah.
maybe don't have a big role going into the season, but we know at some point could emerge due to injury. Uh, I just don't see how you could feel good about Cooper Kupp at his age. The Rams give it up on him, and what we saw last year down the stretch, he just couldn't get open. And even look at the numbers the last 3 years. Yeah, on a per game basis, he's been pretty good, but it's been 3 years since he
Hmm.
had that massive season. And now all of a sudden on a new team that looks like they're going to be run centric and not pass a lot, and he's not even the one on his team, and you're asking him to stay healthy at age 32, you just put it all together. It's difficult to be optimistic and thinking, oh yeah, he'll have a bounce back.
Yeah, I'm not again, if you don't know, I'm a Seahawks fan. So pushing that aside, I'm not super excited about it. And you've got a new offensive coordinator, like you just kind of mentioned, for this team to be, more run heavy. It's the Clint Kubiak offense. So maybe they have more motion and movement, before that. But Cooper Kupp, to me, in this stage of his career, so different than when we're talking about Devonte Adams, because Kupp is limited at this stage in his career. So you also have to think that it has to work out with, Jackson Smith and Jigba, kind of how they're going to deploy him and kicking him outside and all that stuff is going to he's going to have a good transition to, be that alpha wide receiver one again too. But yeah, for me and Cooper Kupp, I haven't taken any of them. Maybe as we get closer at him and I try to tell myself that the Seahawks are in a good position and they're going to contend for a Super Bowl. Maybe I will, but probably not. I'm nervous about them this year. Sam
Yeah,
Darnold.
you probably should be.
Yeah, I know. It's we can go, yeah, we can just on Mondays we can come in here and just be like, "Oh, well that stunk," because I know you're going to say that about the Cowboys. So it's going to be fine. All right. All right. Again, fantasylife.com. Always want to point you guys in that direction. Like I said, we've got upgraded new tools, a brand new website for you, and everything looks so amazing. So make sure to head over there, fantasylife.com. Use that code too, SXM20, gets you 20% off either Fantasy Life Plus subscriptions, tier 1 or tier 2. So you can go and do that. We've got a keeper segment, Adam, that we had people write in some of their questions. We're going to talk a little Tyrone Tracy. We're going to go through David Montgomery and some of the tight ends. We're going to do that here coming up next. Kendall Valenzuela, Adam Ronis with you. This morning, I know for a fact, East Coast Adam, West Coast, doesn't matter. It's the morning still. Adam is awake and he is here, but make sure you're giving us a follow at K Valenzuela, at K Valenzuela 17, and then at Adam Ronis over there on X on Twitter. And let me just say this before we get into this keeper segment, Adam, we have the best listeners, and I am biased 100%, but we just got sent a screenshot from Chris saying he already did his first redraft league of the year and he got voted worst team. but I kind of like it. He
Yeah,
said mainly because Najee Harris. I
yeah.
like that. I
Who
like that.
cares what people vote? That doesn't
Yeah,
matter. I
we're not
mean,
voting for that. We like that. I like that team personally. Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, Najee Harris, Isaiah Pacheco, Marvin Harrison Jr., Khalil Shakir,
yeah. I
Hawkinson.
mean, look,
Pretty good.
I don't think it would get voted the best team, but I don't think it would get voted the worst. I'm assuming. Yeah, it's no, it's solid. I mean, yeah, I guess that's what you're looking at. The running backs, but you went wide
I
receiver heavy
Yeah.
with
Maybe it's the Christian
Jefferson,
Kirk.
Tyreek Hill, Harrison. So
No, it's good.
got an
Appreciate you
elite
listening in on
quarterback
us.
and a top 5 tight end doing Hawkinson, Lamar Jackson.
It's draft season, Adam. We're ready to go. It's so exciting. It also happened very quickly. The summer just went by. I couldn't believe it.
Well, the summer's not done.
Well,
We're
it's
still.
kind of it's draft season. No, we're locked in.
Oh
What do
no,
you mean?
we're locked in.
We're
Yeah.
not leaving the house. What do you mean?
Well, you're not leaving the house, but
I'm
yes,
not.
cannot. It's more difficult to go to the beach during the week for me.
Is it? Even
Yeah, I
though we
mean the
started,
show ends at
no, we're done at noon.
yeah. Then it
You can get
takes
there
like
by
it'll take like
1.
2 hours. No, it's not with traffic. No
Two
way.
hours?
Yeah,
Oh, I
at
thought it was
best
way
an
closer.
hour and a half, which I would still do, but I have
I
other
thought
work
it
to
was,
get
I don't
done.
know why I thought it was way closer than that.
No,
Yeah, never mind. 2 o'clock. And then you're there for how, like 2 hours?
3 4
Yeah.
hours. I'll stay on the beach till 6 6:30.
Okay, then you're fine.
But there's other work to be done.
All right. Friday beach day. How's that? 'Cause then you don't have
That
to,
would be
we don't
good.
have the
That
show.
would be
All right.
good.
All right, good enough. What are we doing? Keeper segment. We're talking keepers here. Got a few of you guys, and again at K Valenzuela 17 at Adam Ronis. You can send us any questions that you have, screenshots of your drafts already. Shout out to you guys. But we do have some keeper scenarios that we need to go through right now. The first one being, let me give you this: Tyrone Tracy in the 15th round versus David Montgomery in the 7th. Your initial reaction, Adam, where would you go with this?
Tracy in the 15th. I know most people probably will say Montgomery, the better offense. We know what his role is. But to me, I don't think they're that far apart in redraft that we should have a discrepancy of 8 rounds here. And if you do like Montgomery that much, you could probably get him back in the draft. So I know there's questions with Tracy because your boy Cam Scatterbo coming in. What's going to
Oh
be
yeah.
the divide of the touches there? And we saw Tracy was good last year. He's just got to stay away from the fumbling issues. And that could be a real problem because if that happens early in the season, it could cost him his job. But it's the 15th round for a potential lead back. Montgomery in the 7th is right at value, basically. I think I was looking, he's going like
Yeah.
65 in the NFFC in their online championship. So, and Tracy goes about 90 in the 90s. So I'd rather take Tracy in the 15th. Are you on the other side?
No, I was originally because we love Cam Scatterbo on this show, but I will say whenever we talk keepers though, it's so important to look at value as well. And if there is a scenario, while as much as I do love Cam Scatterbo, I know that it's more to start at least a 1A 1B situation with the 1A being Tyrone Tracy. And so there is a path for him to just, to get better. It is the fumbling issues though, Adam. Oh my gosh, it was he had overall Tracy had joined Brees Hall as the only running backs with more than 10 combined fumbles and drops last season. Like it wasn't good. So you're right. Out of the gate, if we start the season and we already see that, there is a chance that Cam Scatterbo, who they drafted just a couple months ago, they say, all right, we're gonna go with Cam Scatterbo and let him be that 1A. But 23rd ranked offensive line, Giants running backs last season ranked just 26th in receiving yards over the last 3 seasons under Dable as well. But I would, because when we talk about value, David Montgomery, like you said, you can probably get him at that price anyway. So I would go with Tracy, but I'm not loving it. I'd still love David Montgomery. He has been so consistent when it comes to beating ADPs. We saw it in 2023. He was the RB 31 in the preseason, finished as the RB 15, RB 21 last season, finished as the RB 16, even with the injury. So we kind of know what he brings us. But yeah, I'm with you on Tracy.
I think there is still a possibility that it does shift more in the favor of Jahmyr Gibbs as well. I'm not saying Montgomery's going to go away, but it is a new offense, new offensive
It is.
coordinator. Maybe they go, all right, Gibbs is just so good that we need to give him the ball more. And Montgomery, needs those touchdowns. He has 25 touchdowns rushing over the last 28 games. So he's really dependent on touchdowns because he's not heavily involved in the pass game. Although he did catch
I
36 of
don't
his
know. It's
38
kind
passes
of he
last
was
year.
kind of underrated. Like the usage is a little underrated. I'll say that. Like it's not amazing, but he scored more PPR points. This is shout out to Ian Hartitz for this stat. He scored more PPR points per game as a receiver than Barkley, Jacobs, James Cook last season. Bucky Irving just barely beat
Yeah,
him
but
out.
is that going to continue?
No, well, we don't know. It's a new offense, like you said. I don't necessarily think though that they're going to stray away from what we've seen in years past
They
just because it
shouldn't.
works.
Logically, it makes
Exactly, just
sense
because it
to.
works.
Yeah, I agree, but it doesn't mean though that it will just stay. There's got to be changes for sure, and it makes sense when you watch Gibbs that you go, all right, this can't be a 50-50 split. Like you have to give
Yeah.
Gibbs, it's got to be at least 60-40 in the favor of Gibbs. And their goal line red zone usage has been pretty similar because we do see Gibbs get in there. Usually, I remember last year, it's like that first drive, it's like all Montgomery. And you're sitting
Yes.
there, if you have Gibbs, you're like, oh, is he going to get in the game? And you know it's going to happen. It's just, it can be frustrating when that is your lead back, even though, again, Gibbs still finished, really high.
I will say though, there is like a significant drop, in my opinion, when we look at underdog pricing. He's David Montgomery's RB23 right now. So you're not like, here's the thing, we're not ranking him ahead of James Conner, Chuba Hubbard, Alvin Kamara, but at RB23, the guys going after him, the running backs going after him, start to be DeAndre Swift, Caleb Johnson, Quinshon Judkins, Isaiah Pacheco. So I feel like he's the last solid RB2 to go and get in that range where I'm okay with drafting him.
Yeah, look, if you're looking on years past, it makes sense. But that doesn't mean it's going to stay the same. So I'm a little bit more concerned this
I
year
was gonna say you're a
than
little
ever.
out. You're a little out. We're not
Yeah.
making that decision right now, but I can tell. I can tell. You're like, maybe not. So Tyrone
Yeah, I
Tracy.
think things could change for
All
sure.
right. All right. Well, that's making me nervous. I don't love that, but thank you for that. But it is true when you have Ben Johnson leaving, like I said, you should really continue to do what has worked for you in the past, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to happen for 2025. We've got a few more scenarios I definitely want to go through because we're talking a little Jared Goff, a little bit of Trey McBride, and we have to bring up Jonnu Smith and what some managers should do with him. We're going to do that coming up next. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us on this Tuesday. We are back talking all things fantasy football, and everything you need to dominate your leagues is at fantasylife.com. Make sure to use that code SXM20. Gets you 20% off any Fantasy Life Plus subscription. We've got tier 1, we've got tier 2, and just upgraded tools and an amazing look. We had Dwayne McFarland on yesterday talking about his new ceiling projections, ceiling floor projections. We had Matthew Berry on to talk about it. So if you haven't been, make sure you go over there, fantasylife.com, and check it out. Adam, we're going through some more keeper questions here. We had last segment Tyrone Tracy in the 15th round, David Montgomery in the 7th. Next one here, Superflex tight end premium. Jared Goff in the 3rd or Trey McBride in the 3rd. Already have Justin Fields in the 13th. Need another quarterback. Where are you going?
If it's only two keepers, I can't imagine everyone's keeping two quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to go with McBride here. We've talked about Jared Goff a lot in the offseason and yesterday as well with Dwayne, and he was on, we're all on the same page that we feel, depending on the platform, that Goff is overvalued. He really just had a massive season last year. The touchdown percentage was a career high, and it's just tough to envision that repeating. He actually had less pass attempts last year and had more touchdowns than the previous season. He had 37 touchdowns. His touchdown percentage was 6.9%. His career is 4.8%. So more than likely, those touchdowns are coming down. Even if it's 30, 32 touchdowns, that's fine, but he doesn't run much. To pair him with Fields in a super flex, though, wouldn't be bad, depending on the price. But if it's tight end premium, you're getting McBride in the 3rd round. I think that's the way you have to go. Again, what I like to do in super flex leagues is get that one solid quarterback, and I'm willing to wait on that second one and get them a little bit later. So you have to have a group of quarterbacks that you target in that range, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm with you. And again, it's not us saying that we hate Jared Goff and we don't think he's going to be good for 2025, but I will say the price tag has lightened up a little bit. So now he's QB 15 on Underdog, but I remember our Sunday shows and we would talk, and at the beginning of the offseason, he was going as like QB 8, QB 7. I mean, it was, and again, this could just be because people wanted to stack, their Jahmyr Gibbs, their Amon-Ra St. Brown, their Sam Laporta, whatever it was. So we figured that that's why, there was a little bit of a reach for Jared Goff. But right now, QB 15 over on Underdog, and like you said last season, I mean, it was good. 38 touchdowns, QB 7 in fantasy points per game there. But for me, when we look at quarterbacks, especially in fantasy football, we always want to have the edge, and he doesn't run, and he's I think 30, 31 years old as well. So when I look at that, 2% of Goff's fantasy points came from rushing production last year. We know what we get with him, and it's not going to be any rushing production. So if we look at Justin Fields in the 13th and we're saying we're keeping him and it's a tight end premium, you can't go wrong with Trey McBride this season. There has to be positive touchdown regression too. You only had 2 touchdowns last
Right,
season.
so he can go to
Like you,
4, and that's
yeah,
positive. He
four.
doubled his
Listen, four is
touchdowns.
great. We would be so happy with 4 touchdowns. At some point last year, we have to remember that they were trying so hard. Kyler Murray was trying. It was so blatantly obvious where he was going especially in the red zone. Like they just tried so hard to get him the ball, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah, I think a lot of people went broke with a Trey
It was
McBride anytime
awful.
touchdown every single week. Like, all right, this is the week.
He
They
can't
went
keep getting away. He
they
can't keep
went
doing
broke.
this.
So, but yeah, with Goff too, down the stretch, his last 4 games, he had 12 touchdowns in the last 4 games. I
Wow.
mean, that's really what he had, a 5 touchdown game against Buffalo. So he did come through in the fantasy postseason, which is crazy too, is because 2 of those games were outdoors, where typically that's been the talk with Goff. Oh, well, way better at home, not as good on the road. He had 3 touchdowns in Chicago, 3 touchdowns at San Francisco in the fantasy football playoffs. But that's the past. And looking ahead,
It is the
it's
past.
not someone that you want as your QB1. In a super flex league, like if you could pair him with Fields, I think that's okay. It's not ideal, but if you do get stuck and you don't get an elite quarterback early, I think it's fine with that pairing. I'd be okay with it. I wouldn't be thrilled, but I'd be like, oh, okay, I can work. Because it also
It
means you probably have some good skill positions that you got early on.
Yeah, exactly. And I will say, I think the Lions have one up. No, not the first, because that's the Giants have the toughest strength of schedule, but they have the second hardest strength of schedule this season as well. They finished 15-2 last season, so got a little bit of turnover, like we said, with the coaching staff there. But it's gonna be a hard road for them. I and
Which could be
my,
good though for fantasy
It could be
because
good because it keeps
shootouts.
them in those
Yeah,
games. Yeah,
I
which is
mean
the other part.
we know the division is tough. Yeah, they have Baltimore and
They
Kansas
have
City the
hard
first 2 weeks
games.
on the road.
Yep. They have seven outdoor games too. And then, they have the in division trips that we can talk about, but it's just nine of their road opponents, seven made the playoffs in 2024.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot more difficult, and it goes to
Yeah.
show when you have that opportunity in NFL, that window, you better take advantage of it. Unless you have Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, it doesn't matter for them. It just every year. We need to see the Lions, right? In a Super Bowl. That's the new America's team. I told you that before.
We'll see.
It's not the Cowboys.
Well, it
It's
probably
not.
isn't. Yeah.
No, what? Well, no, it's not. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to say it's definitely not. I just have to throw that one out there. Since you know what, since we're talking about the Lions and since we just said all of that, I just kind of want to ask about Jameson. Are you drafting him this season?
Yeah,
I
I
thought I had
am.
some.
I know the underdog price is insane, so they are
Yeah.
probably not. But I think the price is more fair on other sites. And he had his breakout last year. I don't think we could say he's going to have a breakout. I think it was there, but there's been a lot of positive talk about him throughout this offseason. He's had a lot to deal with. He had the injuries, the suspension. Finally, had pretty
Suspensions,
much
yeah.
a full year last year, and looked really good. So yeah, I could see the targets going up here for him, and he's
Wide
just
receiver
explosive.
25.
Yeah, it's that's
Oh,
that's too pricey. I think.
that's too expensive.
Yeah, I was surprised. I mean, a few spots after that, I think I'm willing to take him.
30.
Yeah, I think around
I'd
that
go.
range. I mean,
Like him he's going ahead of Cortland Sutton, Devonte Smith, George Pickens. Uh,
Yeah, Pickens
and then
has to be higher.
Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, and Waddle, I think after,
Yeah, with Johnny Smith leaving.
yeah, you'd have to feel better about him now too.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Okay, I just wanted
But the
to
thing, but
mention
not
him.
Williams though. He can go off. I mean, especially as we just touched upon with this schedule. Like if they have to play these competitive, high-scoring games, if their
Hmm.
defense doesn't turn it around, I mean that gives them a lot of opportunity. So and when he touches the ball, he has a chance to take it to the end zone anytime. I mean, he did this
Yeah.
last year on 91 targets in 15 games, 58, 1,001 yards and 7 touchdowns. Yeah, he does get some carries, only 11 last year, but maybe they increased that. So you could see the optimism for it.
So do you think with what we just talked about with Jared Goff, with what we just talked about with their tougher schedule for the season, do you think that this is a team that can produce multiple, top 24 fantasy wide receivers in 2025? That I think that's the big question that you have to ask is like, okay, you're buying him at a wide receiver 24 price tag, and that means that Jared Goff will really have to be able to not only continue to, we know that Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to get his. Like he is that guy for this team. Fantasy life ranking wide receiver 8. But for Jameson Williams, like it's going to, he'd have to be locked in to be able to get that finish.
Where did he finish last year in points per game? He had to have been
I have
close.
this. I have
Yeah.
this close by, I
And
swear.
then you have Laporta, you have Gibbs, so I guess it's possible, right?
It
They're
is.
gonna have to put up a lot of points again.
They're gonna have to put up. It just seems wide receiver 20, what did I say, 24 for him or 25 just seems it seems okay, but still it feels risky.
I mean,
It feels just a
The
little
two Chiefs
risky.
guys go higher, right?
Yes.
I mean, are they gonna return
No.
that?
No. I don't think so. At least right now when we're looking
So
at it.
Jameson Williams in
Maybe
a
not.
points per game last year was 25th at wide receiver.
Mm-hmm. But that feels like does that not feel like we're drafting him at his ceiling?
Do
Or
we
do you
know
think
what
he
his
can get
ceiling
better?
is?
That's fair.
I
That's
mean,
fair.
what?
How about Jared Goff's ceiling?
Yeah, I know. We're like talking of Jameson, St. Brown,
I know,
Laporta,
but
Gibbs,
wait,
and
but
we're like,
that's the
yeah,
thing with Jared Goff
nah,
would have to produce like he did last season, right? To get that kind of finish again.
not really. He probably would have to be close, but again, he's we've hit on the things with Goff is he's just not going to run. So
Yeah.
he'll have his weeks, he'll have his 3-4 touchdown weeks, but then there's going to be other weeks where it's heavy on the ground, where it's a Gibbs and Montgomery week.
1,062 total yards, 8 touchdowns in 15 games for Jamison Williams. 14.2 PPR points per game. And I think you just said it, wide receiver 24.
What if they get him the ball a little bit more and St.
Okay.
Brown sees less targets coming off the injury too?
Mm. All right, you're talking me into it. You're talking me. I haven't taken much, and it's not because I don't like
No,
Jameson Williams.
it's expensive.
He's expensive. I look around that range, and like I said, some of the other players where now we have to talk about Jalen Waddle without a Johnny Smith around him. We've mentioned Devonte Smith, Cortland Sutton is the wide receiver one for his team, and if we expect Bo Nix to take a step forward, there are just some other guys in that range where I find myself drafting them more times than Jameson Williams at 25. Xavier Worthy's 24.
Yeah, I think that range is all close too. But
Hmm.
I think at first, when you hear Williams that high, you're like, no way. But the more you kind of look at it, you could see it happening.
Yeah, you definitely could. You could maybe by August I talk myself into it, but right now a little bit expensive. We'll see where he continues to go in drafts as the weeks go by here. So we're gonna continue on though. We mentioned yesterday the ADP boardroom. I kind of want to go back to the ADP boardroom because I found some more prices across ESPN, Yahoo, Sleeper, Underdog, and where we think some of these guys should be going. Want to talk to you about Tedero McMillan, who has a huge difference on Underdog than on ESPN. Same with Joe Mixon. We're going to mention those guys coming up next. Let's be real, you're here to win a fantasy championship. And guess what? You're not going to win playing it safe. You've got to go hard. And no one understands that better than Mike's Hard Lemonade. To succeed in fantasy, sometimes you got to take bold risks like reaching for a rookie, making a blockbuster trade, or blowing all your fab on a breakout player. And yeah, your league mates might roast you in the group chat, but hey, legends don't play scared. They go hard, just like Mike's Hard Lemonade. So crack open a cold Mike's, kick back for a second, and remember, nobody makes lemonade like Mike's. Find Mike's nearest you at www.mikeshard.com. Mike's is hard, so is prison. Don't drive drunk. Premium malt beverage with flavors, all registered trademarks used under license by Mike's Hard Lemonade Co., Chicago, Illinois. We've got you covered right here. Fantasy Life on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. I've had my coffee today. It is, yeah, it's strong coffee. Adam hasn't had any. He's just excited about life and the show. That's how he can get through this. I respect that, though.
Yeah, usually I do need coffee before shows, especially if it's 7 a.m. But
Yeah,
I guess at this time, I'm able to get by without it. So I'll have some after the show.
it's because you're waking up at like 8:45, right? Right before our 9 o'clock
Nah,
show. No, 10. No,
I woke
what
up
time did we
like
start?
6
10.
a.m. and I'm like,
What?
what? Then I went back to sleep. I am
Oh,
a
okay.
horrible sleeper. That is the
Well,
one
no,
thing
we know.
I'm jealous of people. There's so many people that are like, as soon as they touch the bed, they fall asleep. It's a whole process for me. So I don't know
Yikes.
what the
We
problem
need
is,
to
but
get
we'll
that.
figure it out one
We
day.
need to get that fixed for sure.
Yeah.
We'll figure that out.
You
This,
sleep well, don't you?
oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I can
It's
tell.
just close. I just close my eyes. I just go to sleep. I've never.
I'm
Yeah.
jealous.
Yeah, you need. We'll figure it out this season. We'll get it figured out. I will say we see that we have some callers on the line here. Appreciate everyone calling in. Want to give you that phone number 888-963-2682 is the number to call in. So you can call in right now, or you can use that new call in button on the Sirius XM app. You can dial straight in from the app by looking for the phone icon on some of your favorite live shows, including us. So you can call in with just one tap when you see the phone icon available, and get ready for your chance to talk with us. So appreciate everyone on the phones right now. We are definitely going to get to you. But first, Adam, just wanted to visit the ADP boardroom again. This tool is live at fantasylife.com. We've got upgraded tools for you for the 2025 season, and everything looks amazing. Just put that out yesterday, so make sure you go over there. The player I wanted to mention first was Tedero McMillan. I know rookie talk. We're going to continue breaking down all the offseason moves, all the free agency moves, all the draft moves. But Tedero McMillan right now going as the like pick 40 on Underdog and on ESPN 89. Huge difference there in where people are drafting him. Again, you guys always know when we say Underdog, wide receivers are pushed up the board, but this feels like a huge difference between these two.
It really is, because we see massive differences with almost all the receivers. Because, as you mentioned, if you've played on Underdog basketball, you know, got to get those receivers early because they go real high. So it's not going to be like that when you get to redraft leagues, but that is probably one of the biggest gaps for sure at the wide receiver position.
I mean, here's how Fantasy Life has the projections for just the Panthers wide receiver room in general being divided for 2025. Tedero McMillan, 123 targets, Xavier Legette, 80, Adam Thielen, 69, and then Jalen Coker, 45. So expectations are pretty high for Tedero McMillan. But then again, it was Adam Thielen was the guy we were talking about last season, which was crazy to me. And if people believe that Bryce Young will take a step forward, to me, Adam, though, a step forward doesn't mean that he's cracking the top 15 in fantasy. That's just, I think that we all know that that's not what we mean when we say that. But if he does continue like he did during the stretch last year where he ended the year, you can expect at least Tedero McMillan to get peppered with targets. 123. That's the volume we always like to see, even if it's not as good of an offense as we would like.
Yeah, that's what you're looking at here is the volume, and you would think that it's going to be there. They drafted him early for a reason. I mean, 6'5", 212, so he's that big target that, Young hopefully can throw it up to him and he can go get it, because he really didn't have anyone with that size. You had Thielen running his good routes, the veteran, but didn't have a guy like this. So you could see why there's some excitement, but you're paying a pretty high price. I mean, even looking at the NFFC, he's 54th. overall. So it's going to cost you. But again, it's all about the format. If you're playing in a league where you start three wide receivers, the receivers are going to get pushed up a little bit.
Yeah, and again, I'm looking at the wide receiver room, just the depth chart, and it's like Leggett, when we talked about him last season, it was real, like his efficiency metrics were really bad. Like you look at yards per route run, he was 81st, targets per route run 50th, passer rating when targeted was 60th. Like it was bad. So you can expect Tet to get peppered with targets, like we said. Again, not a great offense, but I'm in on drafting him this season, along with maybe a sneaky Bryce Young stack there at the end. All right, that is at fantasylife.com. It is our favorite time of the day, though. Let's go back to the Fantasy Life water cooler coming up next. Oh, you already know what time it is. Time for that Fantasy Life water cooler because we are back. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam Ronis with you just an hour earlier, but excited to be back with you guys Monday through Friday. Our producers are already in midseason form. It's just a great day, Adam. So might as well continue it with the Fantasy Life water cooler here, going through all the pieces of news that you might have missed over the last couple of weeks. And then, of course, sending you back to fantasylife.com. That's where you can see all the upgrades we have made to the website. And again, SXM20, that gets you 20% off any Fantasy Life Plus subscription. So you've got tier 1, tier 2. We've talked ADP boardrooms. We've got ceiling floor projections. We've got projections for week 1 if you really want to go that far, because we know you guys are locked in and we see you guys on hold as well. So we are definitely going to get to your phone calls. The phone number again, 888-963-2682. Or you can use that new call-in button that I told you before on the Sirius XM app. So you can dial straight in from that app if you're on it right now. Look for that phone icon on your favorite live shows, us included, and then you can call in with just one tap when you see the phone icon available, which it should be right now, so you can get ready to talk to us. We'll answer all of your questions, so make sure to hold on just a little bit longer. All right, Adam, water cool. I love it's water cooler time. Let's go through it. Are you drafting Darren Waller?
No, I'm not falling
What
for
are we
that trap.
doing? What's happening? I thought I sent out a tweet. So if anyone doesn't know, the Miami Dolphins, it's been almost a bad secret that it feels like they were always going to end up trading tight end Jonnu Smith this season, or this offseason, I should say. And so now Jonnu Smith ended up with the Pittsburgh Steelers, reuniting with our favorite coach in the NFL, Arthur Smith. But now they did not go out. I thought they were going to go and get Noah Fant, and they did not do that. They went out and got Darren Waller, who he did not, he retired, was putting out music videos. He was rapping, which I love that. Follow your dreams. I don't care about that, but we haven't seen him. So Smith is coming off a career year with the Dolphins, goes to the Steelers, which we kind of hate for fantasy purposes. And now we've got Darren Waller with Miami. I don't like it. I'm not drafting him. Are you?
No, I
Okay.
may be in the 30th round potentially, but look, here's the thing. First of all, it's never great when you take a year off from the NFL. It's probably worse when you're 32. Is he 32 or 33
I
now?
think he's 33. Let me
Yeah.
look.
And the best year we saw from him,
Oh no. Well, he's going to be 32 in September, early September. So he'll be
okay,
33 when the season starts.
all right. But he sat last year. He was not good in 2023. He wasn't great in 2022. Like the real good season, the last we saw from him was 2020. So we're
Hmm.
just going to expect him now to come out of retirement after sitting out when it looked like he kind of didn't want to play. So you also have to wonder what his motivation is. So yeah, I just don't see it.
I don't see it either. Like you said, 197 catches for and this is back with Raiders in 2019 and 2020. And then we talk about injuries over the next 3 seasons. 52 catches for 552 yards and a touchdown in 12 games with the Giants previously. So I'm not falling for it, but he's I just it's weird with the Dolphins that you would look at the year that Jonnu Smith had and then say, you know what, we're good. But on the other side, if we want to keep talking about Miami, Adam, that makes it a lot better for Jalen Waddle for Tyreek Hill, right? I mean, because that was one of the things where Tyreek Hill, I had a hard time in my rankings, putting him inside the top 10, top 12, because I just said to myself, well, if it's ending up like the same as last season and they start funneling targets to Jonnu Smith, it's going to bring down his value. And it's the same thing with Jalen Waddle. But now that he's out of town and we're not expecting too much from Darren Waller, that opens things up for them for sure.
Yeah, I think Tyreek Hill is going to be a real key for this season in drafts. Like, are we going to get the Tyreek Hill we saw 2 years ago, or is he done? I
Yeah.
know he had that race recently, looks fast. Health was an issue last year, but Tyreek Hill could wind up being a real bargain, right? He's been generally going in the third round of leagues that I've seen. So if he does, you don't even need him to return to what he did 2 years ago, but just to be better than last year, where again, the offense was just not the same. They just could not push the ball downfield. Everything was short to Devonte Chan, Jonnu Smith. But if Tyreek Hill gets back, they don't even need to push the ball downfield. They just need to figure out to get him the ball in space on these slants
Yes.
and allow him to utilize his speed to pick up the huge chunks of yardage. So, yeah, I think Tyreek Hill is going to be one of the keys to drafts this year.
He's down what he said told reporters like a month ago he's down 14 pounds. And the other thing that was really frustrating with last season, Adam, was that wrist injury that we didn't know at the time was really bothering him that much. But so now he says, after telling reporters at the end of the season that he's out following their disappointing season, that he's back, he's down 14 pounds and he's now at a more comfortable weight, and he again wants the 2,000 receiving yards for the season. But yeah, I'm kind of back. I wasn't necessarily fully out on him, but in my rankings, it was hard for me to put him closer to the top 12 than anything else. And now I'm kind of thinking to myself, all right, well, if Jonnu Smith especially is gone, it's still right. This is still Tyreek Hill. He's someone that, and it's the same with Jalen Waddle. If we can get both of those guys on the same page, Jalen Waddle was so beyond disappointing last season. But I'm looking at the projections right now. 124 targets for Tyreek Hill, 111 for Jalen Waddle. That comes out to both having over 1,000 receiving yards, and for Tyreek Hill, that's 210 projected fantasy points for the season, which
Yeah,
is huge.
that's a low number though for Tyreek. I mean, it's in line with what he
It
did
is.
last year. Last year was 123, and then his first 2 years in Miami, 170 and 171, which is why he was being drafted in the top 5 last year. That's no longer the case. I mean, whatever numbers you look at, it was way down last year for Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was the way the offense operated. Then you have to look and go, okay, what does Tyreek have left? I mean, that's the biggest question here with a speed guy. But again, he showed he still has the speed. So again, that's why it's challenging. Like, part of you is like, well, do I take him in the third round? What if he bounces back? And another part of you is probably like, well, what if this is just the level he's at now?
Ugh, I know it's gonna be a little bit more difficult, like you said, this year. He's consensus fantasy life ranking wide receiver 12. Jalen Waddle comes in at wide receiver 29. So definitely though with Jonnu Smith, like I said, something where it makes it a little bit easier to go ahead and click draft. What about the other side here of this with Jonnu Smith going to the Steelers? How much does that hurt him and his fantasy value? Because I put him way down my rankings after that. He was inside the top 12, and I can confidently say that he is now outside that top 12.
Well, I hated this trade only because I was not drafting John Smith at all, and I love that he was going so high. So whenever you have a tight end going that high that you're not interested in, it makes it easier for you. So I did not like this trade because now everyone is going to push John Smith down, and it really hurts Pat Fryermuth as well.
It
I
does.
liked him as a tight end too in best ball, because you looked at what they had there and you're like, okay, he could be the number 2 target in this offense, even if you don't expect it to be a fast paced, high scoring offense. Still the number 2 target, so it
Mhm.
hurts Fryermuth as well. So yeah, both those guys have to move down right now because they're
Yeah.
gonna hurt each other.
It's not good. And then you add Aaron Rodgers into the mix. And then, he's 42 by when the season gets going. So he went from top 12, top 10 really, Johnny Smith did. I think I have him right now tied in 15, and then bumped Fryermuth to 19 or 21 is where it's at. So not great. That wasn't a great move. And we have Darren Waller. Maybe he'll sing, maybe he does, he's got his music career. Maybe he'll do like half times.
Maybe
Come on,
he'll
that was
maybe he'll
funny.
retire in the middle of the year.
Stop.
Nah, but there
Why
were
would you
reports though
say
he
that?
didn't like the whole situation with the Giants.
No.
He just didn't want to be there, using him at fullback and all that stuff. So
Yeah, it wasn't good. All right. Continuing on. Continuing on. My joke was good. My Darren Waller joke was funny. You didn't laugh. Come on. What do we do? Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate It's so sad when I have to ask for laughter. The laugh track in the back. Again, we see your phone calls here. Just hang on just a little bit longer. We're definitely going to get to those. Wanted to just talk a little bit about Anthony Richardson. We got word a couple weeks ago that he said, Adam, his shoulder is going to be ready to go for training camp. So this is one where we talked on Sundays about this, but Anthony Richardson, unfortunately, he had the what?
sore
Sore
shoulder, very tough,
shoulder.
right?
Wow. Say that again. Say that 5 times fast. Sore shoulder. And it was the same one that kept him out of games in previous seasons. But he did say over the weekend, a couple weekends ago, that he does plan to participate in the start of training camp. That is coming in a couple weeks. I believe their team reports July 22nd. I'm wondering for you, if he is good to go at training camp, that does change a lot of things. Because for me, when I originally saw this news, I thought to myself, okay, if Daniel Jones gets a couple weeks in training camp to get chemistry started with Michael Pittman Jr. and with all of their other receivers, that's going to give him a leg up because this is still a quarterback competition. That is what this organization has said. But if he is good to go and come back for training camp and gets the full amount of reps in, it feels like now we're back to 50-50 between him and Daniel Jones.
I'm just reading what the Colts are telling us. They don't like Anthony Richardson
Oh,
because here's the thing: they knew when they drafted him he was a project. He didn't play a lot in college, so you knew it was going to take some time to develop. He had 4 games that year, right? Then last year they quickly pulled the plug, went back to him, played 11 games, and now you bring in Daniel Jones. Seems to me they're not giving him much of a chance. So, and yes, he's had his limitations. The completion percentage is terrible, 50.6%. But if you're going to draft that guy in 2023 with the 4th overall pick, don't you got to give him some time? It just doesn't make sense what
yeah.
they're doing. And he could be awful. He might not never improve. But you're going to judge after 15 games? Then why did you invest such a high pick knowing that you were going to need to see and give him some time before determining whether he's the guy or not? It just doesn't make
I
sense to me.
agree. No, I don't think it's a smart move, but it is unfortunately the move that we have to I mean,
Yeah,
there
it
really
feels
is
like
a
it's going to be
chance.
Daniel Jones.
There
It
really is
just
a
feels
chance
it.
there. And I'm with you. I don't necessarily agree with how, but they're on they want to win games. They're on the hot seat. So it feels like for some of those, some of the coaches, just the organization in general, that they're looking at this and they're saying, "Hey, we have to win and we want to start winning now." And if Daniel Jones gives us the best chance to win maybe two or three more games than we would with Anthony Richardson, then it feels like they're going to do that. And the bad part about that for us in fantasy football is we have seen Daniel Jones use his legs before, but with Anthony Richardson, it was almost like the first year he came into the league, it was like, hey, I'm drafting this guy because of what he can give you on the ground. And so when you look at what he's able to bring there, that's why it's so disappointing. The passing game has not been good, and we haven't really seen that get better. Like you said, he's got a 50% completion percentage to his name, but bottom line for me, Adam, I haven't been drafting either of them yet. I kind of this is one situation where sometimes you want to take advantage of lowered prices and everything like that. But I have honestly been telling myself I kind of want to wait for a second to see what starts to happen in training camp and what starts to unfold, because unless it's underdog where you can draft and forget it, it just feels like a really I don't know where the situation's going to go.
Yeah, best ball, it would be your 3rd quarterback, maybe your 4th. And
Yeah.
again, you are concerned because you don't know who's going to start. I think in redraft leagues, it's not even a concern because these guys are outside the top 24. Even if everyone takes a backup, Superflex league, yeah, you're going to have to make a decision. I think both in a Superflex, you can draft both of them and then just see how it pans out, and maybe one becomes a cut, or you hold on to them for the first several weeks and see what happens. But yeah, training camp's going to be a big thing here with the Colts, and it also impacts the wide receivers. That's why you see Josh Downs, Michael Pittman so low, because people are like, all right, who's it going to be a quarterback? Because we saw how bad it was with Richardson last year. You just couldn't start Pittman, and then Pittman had the back injury as well. Downs is a good, talented receiver, but you need a quarterback to get you the football, and you need those targets. So there's a lot. That's the big thing we're watching in training camp for the Colts is like, who is going to be the quarterback?
But if you're drafting Pittman, Downs, Pierce, Mitchell, you're almost rooting for, if you have a lot of them right now, you're rooting for Daniel Jones,
You are.
to be totally honest,
Which is
because
crazy.
a 50%
Think of those words you just said.
No, I
You're
know.
rooting for Daniel Jones.
In the year 2025, Adam, I can't believe it. But it was the same thing last season though, where we said, "Oh, Anthony Richardson's out. Now you're safe to be putting Michael Pittman, Downs, Pierce in your lineups because we know that whoever comes in there is going to have a better completion percentage." So I can't believe what that came out of my mouth, but that's what you're doing if you do have a lot of Pittman, Downs, or Pierce right now. And again, it's just one of those things where we'll continue to update throughout the next couple of weeks, but I want to see what happens in training camp for this Indianapolis Colts team. It's a mess no matter which way you look at it, though. All right, we're going to continue on here, going to go to the phone lines now. Again, fantasylife.com. That's where you can go and subscribe to our newsletter, 100% free, and you can use that promo code SXM20. Gets you 20% off any Fantasy Life Plus subscription. We got tier 1, we've got tier 2. All of the tools that we talk about during the show are on there and live right now, so make sure you go and check it out. Let's get over there. Let's go to Max in New York. I feel like we should give Max something for being the first caller of the year. He's in New York, Adam. Maybe you guys can hang out, but we're going over to Max in New York. Max, what do you got for us?
So I was actually going to say I'm heading to Citi Field next Friday, so I figured Adam would be happy about that too.
Oh, yeah, definitely, man. Enjoy the game. Yeah, Citi Field is a vibe right now. It's a great place to be.
Yeah, so I'm excited for that. But, yeah, I actually had 2 questions if you guys don't mind. The first one, I had a league mate in my league last year. They drafted Henry and Lamar Jackson, and they ended up being one of the best teams in the league. They didn't win it all, but I think they made it to, the semifinals. So I was just curious, is that a strategy you guys would ever use or recommend, like Saquon and Hurts or, Lamar and Henry again, or you kind of stay away from that? Because in years past, I've always kind of avoided that.
Yeah, I don't think it's something you target. Remember, last year was kind of an outlier with some things. Henry stayed healthy the entire year. He was great. I think we all knew that it was a perfect marriage with Henry and the Ravens. It's not something that I would target just because it worked last year. But then again, though, when you look at those two guys, I think we expect them to have big seasons again. I know I do for Lamar Jackson. I don't see how it would get worse in this offense. It should get better. And I'm not going to doubt Derrick Henry, even at his age. So it's not something that I would make my strategy. If it works out where I'm drafting and somehow I get Henry early second and Lamar is there in the third, then I'm not afraid to push the button, is what I'll say. But typically, you'd rather have the quarterback receiver hook up, but I think this is a unique situation with Henry and Lamar. The thing is, I think Lamar Jackson, though, what do you think in redraft leagues? He's going to go in redraft home league, second, third round, right?
Yes.
We know quarterbacks get pushed back in industry leagues, some of the high stakes leagues, but they go earlier in home leagues.
They are. That's what I was going to say is that I'm not changing my strategy, Max, like Adam just said. Sometimes Adam though, if it falls to me and I say, "Hey, here's a Devonte, I don't know, here's a Garrett Wilson," and then all of a sudden Justin Fields is still there and I want him, I'm like, "Oh, okay, this works out." But I'm not changing my strategy necessarily to get those stacks. I think is key.
Yeah, and especially the QB running back, but
Yeah,
I do think you'll see quarterbacks get pushed up in home leagues and some other drafts. And I think, too, this year, people are more willing to pay up for a top quarterback.
I know I am. Max, you said you had one more question for us.
Yeah, I'll try to make it quick. Kind of similar where last year, it's 2 players on the same team. Last year, in one of my leagues, I just kind of tried it and went with Montgomery and Gibbs. It just kind of worked out, kind of what Adam was saying, and it kind of worked out where I was drafting, and I took them both, and I was like, you know what? Hopefully they both have good years, and it kind of worked out for the most part. So I didn't know if whether it's them or another duo, Dobbins and Harvey, or anything like that you guys would maybe say it might work out again this year where you can start them both and have a decent amount of success?
I don't think there's going to be many situations where that's going to work out. I think it's more of basically a handcuff situation, what you want with these running backs, but I can't see many where it's going to work out. I think Montgomery and Gibbs are completely an outlier, right? I mean, there's just not many teams. You wouldn't feel comfortable because here's the problem. If that team has a bad week, now you have 2 spots in your roster that are not putting up points.
Yeah.
More than likely. Someone might have said before last year, H.N. Mostert, right? And look how that turned out.
Not great, but that's the one thing here, Max, where I see the appeal, but it feels like really, Adam, it's only David Montgomery and Gibbs, and then when one of them goes down, you're like, okay, at least I have the other. But I think that's why it's more important if you're getting these, workhorse running backs. Let's put Christian McCaffrey in this situation. I am making sure to get the handcuff, and that's not necessarily for people listening. That doesn't mean that I'm starting Isaac Guerrero every single week, but for some of these running backs, I mean, it's just so important to make sure that you get those backups, especially if we have unfortunately seen injuries in the past and we have examples of those. Like, it's just so you're going to kick yourself in week 3 on the waiver wire if you don't have, your running backs backup. It's the Isaac Guerreros. When we look at, Kenneth Walker, we always kind of think, okay, you try and get Zach Charbonnet. It's just one of those things where it is important. And sometimes they go a little bit later. Sometimes they're a little bit earlier because we know the injury history. But it's always so important, Adam, to at least try to get those handcuffs on your team.
Yeah, some of them are very expensive where it's just too much, but the McCaffrey one, Guerrero, you got to get him. You just have to.
I've drafted. I've taken a lot of Tyler Algier. Just overall, it feels like the best handcuff you could have out there. But just in case, I've gotten a lot of him this year.
Yeah, I think to me, with handcuffs, it's ideal if you can do it. You just don't want to reach for it because there are some scenarios where the handcuff is too expensive. You really don't want to spend an 8th, 9th round pick on a handcuff because you're still looking for players that could potentially start at that point. But then it gets to a certain point where you're like, okay, I have to get this guy here. And look, there's times where that starter never goes down, and
that was last year.
Yeah, you kind of waste a bench spot in a way. But
yeah.
So I see both sides do it because there's this argument every year, and then people when the running backs get hurt. Well, if you didn't handcuff this guy. But then you got last year where a lot of guys didn't get hurt, and a lot of those handcuffs just rotted away on your bench. So I kind of see both sides of it, but for me, it's the price. There are certain prices where you're like, okay, it's worth taking the guy here.
Appreciate you calling in there, Max, and have fun at the game next week. Maybe you'll see Adam. Maybe you'll run into Adam Ronis.
Maybe. I tend to make these last-minute decisions to go, all right, let me go. And Friday night, that is definitely feasible. Yeah, first game back from the All-Star break, too.
Ooh, I like that. All right, the phone number again, 888-963-2682, or press the new call-in button on the Sirius XM app. We see you guys on hold. We are going to continue to get to your phone calls. We're starting team previews, though, and we're going to start. I'm sorry, Adam. We are going to start with the Philadelphia Eagles because they won the Super Bowl, and it feels like the best place to start. So we're going to go through their team previews and take your phone calls coming up next. Talking team previews starting today. FantasyLife.com is where you can see all of our articles. Every single team. Ian Hartitz did an amazing job over there, so make sure you go and check it out. Sorry, Adam, you had to listen to that, but the Cowboys weren't going to be there.
Yeah, well, I know that, but it just hurts more.
It's fine. I feel like we don't talk about it enough. I'm going to be totally honest. 40-22. I feel like we really glossed over that a little bit too much. Maybe because it was the Chiefs. 40-22. That was crazy.
It really was.
We weren't expecting that.
Well, I don't think many people were. But the more we got later in the week at Radio Row, there were a lot of people starting to pick Philadelphia because I think. True. Basically, because what was the argument for Kansas City? Well, it's the Chiefs. They win close games. They've been here before, right? But if you really looked at it, I mean, the Eagles matched up very well, and they dominated.
How about this? I didn't expect a blowout like that. I mean, because the
Yeah.
22 points is also, not real, doesn't really reflect how they played in that game. So the 40 to 22 was fun, honestly, to see that happen. The Chiefs are obviously going to try and come back this season, but so are the Philadelphia Eagles. And like you said, they matched up well with them, and we can bring up Saquon Barkley. I don't think anyone needs us to tell them that it's okay to draft Saquon Barkley in the year 2025. But after what 2005 yards in 2024, 125.3 rushing yards per game, were 43.3 more than his previous career high mark. Adam, it was insane. Signed a 2-year, $41.2 million extension this offseason, highest paid running back in NFL history. They still have the top ranked offensive line according to PFF. They returned 4 of 5 starters. So yeah, and here's the thing though, it's so interesting to me this season, Adam, where it feels like people are just drawing the line and they're saying, I'm not taking Saquon Barkley 101. And in years past, it almost feels like it's been evolving for fantasy football where we say, oh, Christian McCaffrey was, the number 1 running back last season. We're going to take him 101. But this year feels very different with Saquon, where I've seen Bijan Robinson go ahead of him, and you're probably going to look at Jamar Chase going ahead of him as well. But people aren't necessarily taking him at the 101 spot.
Yeah, and again, I think it's just the massive workload when you include the postseason too. So I think that's what they're looking at. Also, you keep hearing that the same player hasn't repeated his RB1 in a long time. I
Yeah.
think it was LaDainian Tomlinson. So the thing is with Barkley, though, if there's anyone that could do it, it's probably him because, again, everything is set up for success. It's just a matter of him staying healthy at this point. He did get dinged up a little bit towards the end of last year as well. Didn't really miss any time, though. So, and the other factor is he just wasn't involved in the passing game as much as you
Yeah.
wanted to see. And again, he offset that with all the carries and the touchdowns. But yeah, it's a lot of people are going to say, yeah, I'm just not taking a guy with all that volume. So the regular season, it was what, 378, and then you add what he did in the postseason, and so that's a huge workload. And usually when you see that, players tend to struggle the next year, whether it's staying healthy. But Barkley's 28, he's built well, so if there's anyone that can overcome it, I think it can be him. So I have no problem if you want to go with Bijan Robinson over him, but I guess it comes a point. I saw some high stakes drafts where he was going 8th and 9th overall.
Really?
Yes.
So Jameer Gibbs, CeeDee Lamb,
Yeah, we're
Puka
all going over
Nacua.
him.
Would that put Christian McCaffrey ahead of him then? At 9?
In those drafts, I don't think so.
Okay.
But yeah, he's moving up.
CMC is now the 7th pick on Underdog.
Yeah,
is
so
funny
I'm looking
because we were
at the NFFC online championship since June 23rd. McCaffrey's ADP is 5.
We'll talk about him. I'm not taking Christian McCaffrey ahead of Saquon Barkley. I'm just not doing it. But I do understand, like you said, where if you're wanting to take Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Bijan Robinson, I see those. That's probably to me, Adam. That might be where I draw the line there for myself, unless I'm just really trying to. Again, we've talked about how many drafts we do. If I'm trying to just get a little bit more exposure to other guys, CeeDee Lamb, Jameer Gibbs. But again, I'm not taking Christian McCaffrey ahead of Saquon Barkley. I just cannot do it. But the two holes you could poke into Saquon's game for 2025 is, like you said, the receiving volume. He averaged it was a career low. 4.6 PPR points per game as a pass catcher. And then just the goal line work with Jalen Hurts. That's always going to be there. Jalen Hurts had the league's 3rd most rush attempts from inside the 5-yard line last season. That was 18 attempts there. But you're always going to have that with Jalen Hurts. That's what brings us to the other side is like, you don't need, really for anyone on this team, you don't need us to tell you that it's okay. Yeah, like we're drafting them. Jalen Hurts, like I'm very much this season, Adam, I've found myself getting one of the more elite quarterbacks if I don't want to wait for a Kyler Murray, Bo Nix, Justin Fields like we've talked about. And I've felt pretty okay with it because then you go the whole draft without, really thinking about it. You should at least be going through the whole draft without thinking about another quarterback. On Underdog, you usually walk away with 2 or 3. But Jalen Hurts, he's still going to be Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, he's going to be in that top 5. And the other thing, too, why it could get better is this Philly offense, they dominated last year. They had a fortunate schedule as well, and they took advantage of it. But they had a lot of games where their star players didn't have to do anything in the fourth quarter. I don't see that repeating this year. The schedule's tougher. We know how difficult it is in the NFL to put together 2 years of dominance. So they're going to be playing more competitive games. I mean, just look at some of the teams they played last year.
It's a tough. Last year, yeah, it was easier.
Yeah, it
well,
was.
what? Yeah.
So I think you could see more competitive games, which is going to be more beneficial for their skill position players. It'll also put Hurts in a position where he probably has to throw a little bit more. We know he's always going to get it done with his legs, the tush push, obviously. And how many times did you see players for Philly go down to the one last year? It just feels like so many times. And we all knew, okay, we know what's coming next. Hurts is going to get the ball and he's going to score. But yeah, I do think you'll see some more pass attempts from this offense. Hurts had 361 pass attempts last year in 15 games. That's just insane.
I think the only team lower than them was it not the Baltimore Ravens?
Probably, which shows how efficient Lamar Jackson was as well to put up those numbers.
I mean, but for you to say, and that's what I'm thinking here too, is that they have a tougher schedule. They're going to be in these games more times than they were last season, and that is also good news for AJ Brown, Devonte Smith, right? When we look at when we talk about a duo like that, we kind of mentioned it when we were talking about the Lions with Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown. What needs to happen to have two top 24 fantasy wide receivers, and what does Jared Goff need to do? It's the same thing with Devonte Smith and AJ Brown, where last season, for as bad as I thought Brown was, he still finished as the wide receiver 12. It was just kind of I shouldn't say disappointing. It was some weeks it was tough because he went down, what was it, a concussion, and then he had one other injury, right?
Was it a hamstring or something?
A hamstring or an ankle, something like that. But he still finished 16.7 points per game, wide receiver 12, and then Smith was wide receiver 15 at the end of last year.
Yeah, I think it's just what they did on a game-by-game basis, because I did have a lot of A.J. Brown last year. I liked taking him late first round, and it was disappointing because there were just some weeks where he just, 11 points, 5 points, 13. And a lot of it was due just to they didn't need to do anything. You knew if you weren't getting production from A.J. Brown by the early third quarter, you knew you weren't getting anything in the fourth. It was just going to be shut down. The thing is, though, he's such a big play threat because for a guy that finished as high as he did, 67 receptions in 13 games, I mean, that is just brutal. He didn't even get to 100 targets. Again, he did miss the 4 games, but you look at what he did his first 2 years in Philly, I mean, he could get back to those numbers. It's just, again, there's no way that the passing volume can be that low for Philly again, unless they just have another dominant run where Barkley and Hurts are just running up and down the field and they're winning comfortably. It's unlikely to repeat. So Brown should bounce back, and you're getting him at a pretty good price.
And you're never gonna get 180 plus target ceiling from AJ. Like, that for AJ Brown, you were never going to get that.
Yeah, but you only need 140 to 150 from him.
No, exactly. And even with Devonte Smith there, like they combined 58% target share, and that ranked second among wide receiver teammate duos from last season. 80% combined air yard share was tied for first. So it's one of those things where you never needed 180 for AJ Brown because, like you said, you're solid when you're in those lower numbers because he's able to produce with it. Same with Devonte Smith.
Yeah, Brown had 3 games of double-digit targets last year, which is insane for a guy of his caliber. I mean, he is so good, and it's one of the cases where the offense really hurt him in terms of overall output, his stats, and the fantasy production. Again, as you mentioned, it was still good. But the problem is, though, when you draft Brown late first round and you see some of these other receivers putting up the numbers, especially the guys going later, the Malik Neighbors, the Brian Thomases, you're like, yeah, I want that from A.J. Brown. And I think it could return this year. 'Cause again, the one thing with him, too, is you look at some of his games, he's the type of guy that he can get 6 targets, go 5 for 68 and a touchdown. And that's a good game. And there's not many receivers that can do that. So I just got to think that the volume goes up this year. There's no way they go through another season with less than 400 pass attempts. I just don't see it. They dominated.
He had 2 games over 10 targets, and it was 11 and 15. And then in the reception category, he topped out at 8. Like 8 was his most. And
yeah.
But he still put up, he had 8 and 110 for 25 fantasy points. He had 8 and 97 for 23. So I'm with you there. I drafted a lot of AJ Brown last season, and I see myself honestly doing it again. And same with Devonte Smith. I think Devonte Smith's going a little bit too late for what he's been able to produce with this Eagles offense. So I'm back in on both of them, and this team in general. It feels like we're just going to draft every single player that we see on this offense. So that was the Eagles team preview. Again, fantasylife.com to see full team previews written out by the great Ian Hartitz. He did an amazing job on those, so make sure you go and check him out. If we've got phone calls, we are definitely, I promise, going to get to you here because we're going through the biggest rankings risers from the offseason to today. We're going to give you those names coming up next. Fantasy Life right here. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam Ronis with you on this Tuesday. Hopefully you're having a great start to your day right now. Want to make sure we continue getting your phone calls in. 888-963-2682 is the number to call in, or you can press that new call-in button on the Sirius XM app if you're there right now. But let's go out to Paul in Orlando. Paul, what do you got for us?
Hi, thanks for taking my call. Isn't draft season fun?
I
have a question, and I think it is. I think I'm overthinking it. I'm in a keeper league for 20 years, and I can keep two players. I got Brock Bowers in the 12th round. But my question is, I have Justin Jefferson, who would be my first-round pick in the 11th round, but I also have T.J. Hawkinson, would be my 17th round pick. I think I'm overthinking this to take Jefferson, but what do you guys think? And also, one more question. What about the Tampa Bay offense? When do I choose Baker, Bucky Irvin, or any of the 4 receivers?
Okay, awesome. No, appreciate you calling in, Paul. So the first one here, Adam, is just in Keeper League. Brock Bowers in the 12th, J. Jeff in the 11th, TJ Hawkinson in the 17th. Looks like he already sounds like Paul is keeping Bowers, though.
Yeah, I mean, and Jefferson's the other one. I mean,
yeah,
don't overthink it. You already have the elite tight end in Bowers, then you take Jefferson. Easy.
Yeah. That's nice. Good. That's a nice team there, Paul. But I agree. J. Jeff, don't overthink that one. In the 11th, I know we talk about value and stuff, and looking at TJ Hawkinson in the 17th, but Justin Jefferson is one where we say, yeah, we're gonna try and keep him. And then just overall question here, Adam, about the Tampa Bay offense and what we're expecting for not only Baker Mayfield, but you've got Chris Godwin back, you've got Mike Evans, and now you've got a rookie receiver, Emeka Egbuka. I guess for me right away, Adam, we're still keeping Baker Mayfield in the top 10 as a quarterback, but we can't expect some regression. That doesn't mean he's going to be necessarily bad, but it means that he just had a phenomenal year last year, so we can expect some of those stats to come down, but he's still ranked for us, I believe, QB 8 going into the year.
Yeah, the thing is, like, that's where if you do projections, that's where he should be. I just don't feel comfortable drafting him in that spot. Okay. Yeah, I'm passing on him. You mentioned that the touchdown percentage, it was 7.2% last year. His career mark is 5%. I don't think anyone's expecting 41 touchdowns again, but it could be 30 to 33, which is fine. Mm-hmm. We do have Liam Cohen gone now. That was the concern last year, and so it'll be the 3rd offensive coordinator in 3 years for him in Tampa. But they do have all the pieces there. I'm not going to take Mayfield at that price.
You think we're drafting him at his ceiling, essentially?
Yeah, but again, like if you do projections, that's probably where he has to come out, right? Because you're not going to project 41 touchdowns, but you're probably going to put in the 30 to 32 range, and he's got an array of weapons. So, but I don't want to take him at 7.
He's projected right now, fantasylife.com, 3,980 yards, 68% completion percentage, 29 touchdowns, and then 240 rushing yards for an extra 2 touchdowns there. So 31 total touchdowns.
Yeah, but you're paying for last year, so at that price. So I don't want to do it. I'd rather wait and I'd either take the elite quarterback early or wait longer.
Do you like any of the receivers? Are you going back to Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, a little late, Emeka Egbuka, just in case either of those 2 guys go down?
I'm lower on Evans than his price. I know that sounds crazy because he's got to
No.
get his 1,000 yards every year, but remember he benefited from Godwin being out, and he was kind of force fed the ball. He's a year older. Godwin, I'm really monitoring here in training camp coming off this injury. Like they definitely feel confident because they went out and they paid him a lot of money, and I believe he could have gotten more from New England, and he decided to stay. But for Tampa to go out there and spend that money, I know people will say, well, then they went out and drafted Emeka Egbuka. I think they did that for the future, but I still think he could
Agree.
play a solid role this year, especially if one of those guys goes down or Godwin is slow to come around. So I kind of like taking Egbuka late.
Yeah, I think they even came out and said that they got Igbuka not because they don't believe that Chris Godwin's going to be good to go for week 1, but they also did say that it's nice to have Igbuka because it does not rush Chris Godwin back to the team. So again, that's one to monitor because that was a tough injury that he had last season, but it looks like he should be good to go. I'm okay with Baker Mayfield. I will say though, looking at my exposures and stuff, I have not taken as much of him as I thought I did, especially from what we got last season. You can expect the touchdowns per pass attempt to come, basically everything. Touchdowns per pass attempt, passing yards per attempt, rushing yards per game. Those are and the touchdowns. Those are all going to come down because you just can't. You could, but I just don't expect you can't have that many touchdowns this season. It was that last year 41
Yeah.
was insane.
Yeah.
That was amazing for him, but like I said, we're thinking about 29 right now projection.
4th in points per game for leagues with 6 points for a passing touchdown last year.
That's crazy.
He actually scored more than Jaden Daniels in leagues with 6 points for a passing touchdown.
So I don't hate him, but I haven't taken him as much. I believe he's my QB 9 in the rankings right now. So still in that range of the Bo Nix. Yeah, Kyler Murray is still there for me. We can talk about him later, but appreciate you calling in, Paul, with the keeper question and the Tampa Bay offense question as well. Again, the phone number to call in for Sirius XM 888-963-2682 or press that new call in button on the Sirius XM app. We are going to continue on here, though. Wanted to definitely mention some of the biggest rankings risers. Are we missing out on this running back who has essentially, Adam, no competition around him? We're going to give you that name coming up next. Oh, as always, we appreciate you all hanging out with us here today. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam Ronis with you at KValenzuela17 at Adam Ronis over there on X on Twitter. Make sure you stick around though, because you've got an amazing schedule. You've got RotoWire Fantasy Sports today with Jeff Erickson and Nick Whalen coming up next at noon. Then at 2 p.m., you've got Elite Sports with Jeff Mans. 5 p.m., you've got the Fantasy Footballers. 6 p.m., Fantasy Alarm with Howard Bender and Jim Bowden. 8 p.m., Football Diehards with Bob Harris and Mike Dempsey. And then 10 p.m., you've got Smart Fantasy all Eastern time. So again, keep it locked right here. We've appreciated you guys sending in your messages today, calling in. Again, fantasylife.com to check out all of those upgrades to our tools. And if you want one of the premium subscriptions, SXM20, that gets you 20% off any Fantasy Life Plus Tier 1 or Tier 2 subscription. Can't recommend it enough. The one player I definitely want to ask here, Adam, because it's biggest rankings risers where I've seen, DeAndre Swift initial rankings at Fantasy Life consensus was around RB 35, and now currently is going more around the 25 range. I feel like maybe I'm missing something here. DeAndre Swift feels like he could be one of the biggest winners this offseason in terms of you've got Ben Johnson coming to town, you've got upgrades to that offensive line, and you virtually have not a lot of competition around you. So for me, when I look at him and he's coming off a great 2024 season, career high marks there, I just want to know what I'm missing here because it feels like a no-brainer to be drafting DeAndre Swift right now.
Especially at that price. I think what happened is everyone was waiting for the Bears to do something else, whether it was the draft, free agency. Like, all right, they're not going to go with DeAndre Swift as the lead back and Roschon Johnson, right? And nothing has changed. So I think that's why it's taken a while, I guess, for that to rise a little bit because you have all those previous drafts the early ones where he wasn't going very high.
I'm still here. Well, I'll just say I agree with what Adam was saying though, because right now, I'm going to say Bijan Robinson. Right now, though, he is going DeAndre Swift RB 26 over there on Underdog, and to me, even our current rank at FantasyLife.com, way higher for him. So we have him, like I said, RB 22. I just think that I think he can outperform that ADP no problem, especially at the 26 range. Like I said, he's coming off career best marks when we look at 1,345 yards in that season. He has Ben Johnson now as his new head coach, upgrades to the offensive line. And I just think that right now he's going way too late. He's projected at Fantasy Life, let me tell you this, 940 rushing yards, on top of 278 receiving yards. So that puts him at a potential RB 16 finish in our projections. Now, I don't know if he's going to crack, top 15, but RB 16 finish for me when he's going that late on Underdog, it's just someone that you need to have on your radar. So that's the one guy I definitely wanted to call out there. Again, the rankings are live at fantasylife.com, so make sure you go and check those out. We've got week 1 projections as well if you want them. Make sure you stick around here. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us today. We'll see you same time here tomorrow.